A mother screamed as flames swallowed her white Xiaomi SU7. Her daughter was trapped inside. The doors wouldn't open. The car promised smart safety. It became a coffin. Across town, a truck driver stood outside a state-owned bank, stunned. His savings, 100,000 yuan, vanished overnight. Account frozen, they said. No reason, no explanation, no refund. And just outside Shenzhen's once booming factory district, thousands of young workers now sleep on cardboard mats under broken streetlights. Jobless, broke, forgotten. Electric cars that burn their owners alive. Banks that steal from the poor. A middle class forced to sell instant noodles on sidewalks. This isn't a glitch, it's a system. So the real question is, how did a country that once promised prosperity become a machine that devours its own people? And what if the most dangerous part of China's crisis isn't what's collapsed, but what's still standing, hiding the truth? It always starts the same. Flash, a scream, then silence. On April 13th, at a car show in Liaoning, a Huawei 80M7 suddenly veered off track. It smashed into 4 other vehicles, sending crowds running in panic. One person was injured. All 4 EVs were totaled. Surveillance footage showed the car's initial speed was low. So why did it keep going? Huawei blamed the driver. No seatbelt, they said. A sharp turn. The brakes didn't activate. But this wasn't the first time a smart car failed to stop. And it wasn't the last. In Rongshan County, a BYD Seagull caught fire during charging. The explosion flattened a row of homes. A family of 5 barely escaped through a second-floor window. Their lives burned down in under 10 minutes. The street was sealed. The cause can't be discussed. In Shenzhen, 3 students died after a Xiaomi SU7, running on autonomous mode, slammed into a divider and erupted in flames. Xiaomi blamed the e-bike it hit, but leaked video showed the opposite. The SU7 didn't even break. Its front was crushed. The battery ignited. The victims never had a chance. What's terrifying isn't just the death toll. It's the pattern. Every failure is followed by a cover-up. Blame the driver. Blame the weather. Blame anything except the car, the system, or the company. And those who speak up? Silenced. A vlogger who compared the Xiaomi SU7 to rival brands was sued and jailed. Another repair expert received lawsuits from 3 EV firms, just for pointing out bad brakes and fragile battery designs. BYD even set up a reward program. Report any critic, get up to 5 million yuan. This isn't a consumer market. It's an authoritarian showroom, where branding replaces safety, where made in China means don't ask questions. And yet, this is only the beginning, because while cars are exploding on the streets, banks are quietly imploding from within. In April 2025, China's 5 largest banks, including ICBC, Bank of China, and China Construction Bank, announced they were abolishing their internal supervisory boards, the very mechanism designed to prevent corruption, monitor executives, and ensure transparency. Erased. What does that mean? It means there's no more firewall, no more oversight, just a green light for black box operations, bad debts hidden, fake loans approved, insider deals rubber-stamped. Within weeks, local scandals emerged. Bank accounts frozen, depositors locked out. In Henan, over 400,000 victims were denied access to 40 billion yuan. Many took to the streets holding banners. Give us our life savings back. They weren't protesters. They were pensioners, factory workers, young parents saving for tuition. Now branded social disruptors. The People's Bank says the system is under control. But behind closed doors, panic is spreading. Executives arrested for embezzlement. Loans handed out under fake company names. Regulators too scared or too complicit to stop it. And the people, they keep saving. Because where else would they go? They don't know their deposits fund high-risk projects that collapse in silence. They don't know their retirement money is swallowed by shadow banks, off-the-record lending schemes worth over 60 trillion yuan. They think they're saving for their future, but they're fueling the next collapse. This is not a broken system. It's a hijacked one. A machine no longer designed to serve its people, but to drain them quietly. And if even your car isn't safe, and your bank isn't safe, where does a Chinese citizen go next? While China's streets erupt in flames and banks quietly dissolve trust, Beijing continues to push its favorite illusion, internal circulation. The idea sounds noble. If exports collapse, just sell to your own people. Transform global manufacturers into domestic darlings. Keep the wheels turning from within. But there's one problem. The people can't afford it. After years of zero-COVID lockdowns, a housing market crash, and rising unemployment, Chinese households have nothing left to spend. In March 2025, retail sales in Beijing plunged nearly 10%. In Shanghai, over 14%. These are the wealthiest cities in China. If even they are choking, what's happening elsewhere? At a Canton Fair booth, a factory owner from Hubei stood beside her high-end dining chairs. Polished wood, velvet seats, retailing at $150 a piece. We used to ship 10 containers a month to the US, she said. Now, 0. Americans stopped buying. So the government told us to sell domestically. She tried, but no one bought. People passed by, glanced, then walked away. Too expensive, they muttered. She wasn't alone. Over 200 companies joined a state-sponsored campaign to reroute exports into local markets. They opened booths, signed up for live streams, joined online malls. JD.com promised to buy 200 billion yuan worth of products. Local supermarkets rolled out foreign trade specials. But nothing moved. Booths stood empty. Carts rolled back full. Sales flatlined. Because internal circulation was never a market strategy. It was a narrative bandage, meant to hide a fatal wound. Foreign trade firms were built for global buyers. High standards, high margins, long cycles. When you force them to pivot overnight into low-margin, hyper-competitive local markets, you're not saving them. You're slaughtering them. And the system knows this. That's why it turned to the final trick. Sell the junk. Literally. A foreign trade manager, Karen, told reporters, "We used to throw defective products away. Now we label them as domestic editions and sell them for 3x the export price." Why? Because there's no one watching. Because there's no longer any difference between a regulated product and a repackaged reject. A toy that costs $30 to export gets sold domestically for 300 yuan, with no quality inspection, no return policy, no warranty. The same applies to electric vehicles. Factory seconds, glitch-prone software, faulty batteries, all dumped into the domestic market as consumer innovations. The result? Cars catch fire, devices explode, consumers get hurt, but no one sues, no one wins, because even the courts have been co-opted by the system they're meant to oversee. It's not just EVs and furniture. It's rice cookers, washing machines, smart fridges, anything once exported. Now repackaged, sold to the same workers who once made them, now buying them at inflated prices, unaware they're buying the leftovers of a collapsing empire. This isn't a temporary pivot. This is systemic cannibalism, a machine feeding on its own people. And while the public is distracted with live stream deals and patriotic commercials, the architects of this collapse quietly cash out. Company founders exit to Singapore. Bankers buy condos in Vancouver. CCP-linked investors wire millions overseas through shell companies. And back in China, the same slogans echo: support domestic brands, trust our innovation, believe in the party. But belief doesn't stop a fire. It doesn't stop a bank from freezing your savings. And it won't stop a system that's designed to use every citizen as the last source of liquidity. China's crisis isn't just about what failed. It's about what still functions: a propaganda engine, a financial trap, and a policy framework so tightly controlled, even collapse looks organized. So when Beijing says, the system is stable, ask yourself, stable for whom? You can walk through entire industrial parks in Dongguan and not hear a single machine running. The factories are still there. The walls are still painted. Some even have banners hanging, remnants of a time when orders flooded in from the US, Europe, Japan. But step inside, and it's silence. No workers, no shipments, just empty production lines gathering dust. This is not a crisis waiting to happen. It's a funeral already underway. In Zhejiang, boss Li Chang stares at a warehouse filled with plastic kitchenware. "I've done foreign trade for over 20 years, he says. "This is the first time I've ever thought about closing for good." Over 75% of his exports went to the US. That's all gone now. Tariffs north of 50% erased his margins. American buyers walked away. Li's story is not unique. It's a snapshot of a system-wide industrial collapse. Toy factories in Dongguan, furniture makers in Taizhou, textile producers in Fujian, all tell the same story. Export orders have dried up, but pivoting to domestic sales has been a disaster. Why? Because these companies weren't built to serve a domestic market choking on inflation, debt, and distrust. They were built to supply the world. When that world shut its doors, the factories became ghost shells. The government's answer? Push internal circulation. Encourage companies to go digital, join e-commerce platforms, and rebrand as domestic innovators. But that didn't fix anything. In fact, it broke things faster. Because what happens when high-end manufacturers are forced to compete in China's cutthroat local market? Margins disappear. Brands die. Companies collapse under the weight of logistics, live stream costs, and discount pricing wars. At the 2025 Canton Fair, one exhibitor summed it up perfectly. "We came to make connections. No one placed an order. Not one." More than 60% of companies trying to go domestic report net losses within the first year. Advertising is too expensive. Warehousing too unstable. Most rely on a single channel, Douyin or JD.com, and burn cash for visibility. No returns, no scale, no loyalty, and when desperation kicks in, the lines blur. Factories cut corners. Quality control vanishes. Defective exports are relabeled as made for China and dumped into local markets. It's the corporate version of a controlled demolition from the inside out. According to the Ministry of Commerce's own data, 30% of export-oriented enterprises are now considering relocating outside China entirely: Vietnam, Mexico, Indonesia. But for small and mid-sized firms, this isn't even an option. They lack the capital, the network, the time. So what do? They stall. They lay off workers. They default on loans. And then they disappear. Official statistics say only 12% of small foreign trade firms went bankrupt in 2024. But insiders say the real number could be twice that. Why? Because many simply vanish without a trace. No closure notice. No bankruptcy filing. Just locked doors and unpaid workers. YouTube vloggers have posted videos of entire factory towns turned to ruins. Machines stripped for parts. Signs still lit up, yet no people inside. One factory manager in Xinjiang said, off record, "You don't hear about the closures because we're told to keep quiet. The moment we speak out, we're accused of spreading negativity." That's the final layer of collapse. Not just economic, but informational. When the system fails, it doesn't scream. It censors. And for the companies still hanging on, they're not surviving. They're bleeding slowly. A metal parts supplier in Suzhou revealed that most clients now demand 90-day payment terms, sometimes 120. "Cash flow is dead," he said. "We're financing our clients' operations just to keep machines running. We're not earning. We're just delaying death." The Chinese government can publish GDP growth targets, can stage trade expos, it can paint murals of optimism on factory walls. But the truth is written in the balance sheets, and in the silence of a factory floor where no one has shown up for months. Because the lie wasn't just about a booming economy. It was about what kind of economy they were building. An economy designed to impress headlines, not sustain livelihoods. A structure built on debt, leverage, and illusion. And now, as the scaffolding crumbles, we see what was really inside. Nothing. At 7 p.m., the streets of Shenzhen's electronics district transform, not into innovation hubs, but into open-air desperation. Hundreds of folding tables slam into the sidewalk. Young men set up noodle carts. Women unpack piles of cheap socks, instant noodles, fried cakes. Children hover nearby, barefoot, doing homework under flickering street lamps. These aren't vendors by trade. They're laid-off engineers, logistics workers, salespeople, victims of the vanishing middle class. By midnight, it's shoulder to shoulder. One man slices meat under a sign that reads, Tech Manager, Huawei, 2017 to 2023. He used to manage supply chains. Now he barters pork fat. This isn't just a quirky post-pandemic pivot. This is collapse. The sidewalk economy exploded across China in late 2024. Sparked by mass layoffs and dead factories, it was quickly romanticized in state media. Resilient entrepreneurship, they called it. But on the ground, it looks like chaos. Petty turf wars. Vendors fist-fighting over 1 meter of curb. Police swinging batons one night, then ignoring everything the next. Why? Because the state doesn't have a plan. Just slogans. What happened to the millions of workers from collapsed factories? They didn't disappear. They spilled into alleyways, train stations, parks, underpasses, anywhere with foot traffic. TikTok users documented it all. Rows of sleeping bags outside Longhua Bus Depot in Shenzhen. College grads selling bubble tea in torn lab coats. A former BMW technician giving $2 haircuts on a plastic stool. This isn't resilience. It's a scream in slow motion. And the psychological collapse runs even deeper. A university graduate from Henan posted, "My father worked 20 years so I could study. Now I earn less selling dumplings than he did cleaning toilets." Another from Xi'an said, "There's no dignity here, just survival." The Chinese dream didn't just fade. It inverted. Now the dream is, don't starve. Don't get arrested. Don't die in an EV explosion. As economic pillars crumble, social trust vanishes with them. In communities once bustling with commerce, residents now chain their e-bike batteries to kitchen sinks. Thefts are so rampant that store owners install 2 locks per fridge. Neighbors suspect neighbors. A dropped wallet becomes a public showdown. Petty crime explodes, but not out of greed, out of despair. One woman in Chengdu was caught stealing cooking oil and rice. When asked why, she broke down. "It's not for me," she whispered. "It's for my son. He hasn't eaten meat in 5 days." Yet when local officials report on crime, stable, when unemployment is tallied, flexible employment. In reality, flexible employment means standing in the rain selling fried tofu for 16 hours a day and still not affording rent. Worse, it means zero insurance, no retirement, no social protection. Millions now live hand to mouth, entirely outside China's official safety net. And that's exactly how the system likes it. Because off-the-record workers don't count in official metrics. They're suffering, invisible by design. And while this broken underclass grows, so too does resentment. Toward landlords who won't lower rent. Toward tech billionaires posting motivational quotes from luxury cars. Toward a government that keeps insisting, everything is under control, but the control is crumbling. In Wuhan, a viral video captured a brawl between noodle vendors. A stall was set up just inches away from another, copying the menu, the layout, even the prices. The original vendor begged them to move. They refused. The fight went viral, but the message wasn't about noodles. It was about how a country that promised prosperity to 1.4 billion people has forced them to fight over sidewalk shadows. This isn't capitalism. It's cannibalism. And it's happening in silence because speaking up is dangerous. Multiple vendors report being fined, harassed, even arrested for unlicensed operation. Yet those who obey the law starve. The social contract is broken. Hard work no longer guarantees survival. Education no longer guarantees employment. Trust no longer guarantees protection. So what happens next? A middle-aged delivery driver in Guangzhou put it best. "We used to build the factories. Now we fight over food trucks. I don't blame the US. I don't blame COVID. I blame the system. They used us up. Then they threw us out." In China today, people don't fall through the cracks. They are the cracks. Once upon a time, the world couldn't live without China. From Walmart shelves to Wall Street portfolios, made in China was the oxygen of globalization. American brands depended on Chinese factories. European retailers relied on Chinese ports. Tech giants saw the mainland as the final frontier for scale. But now, that era is ending. Quietly, relentlessly, irreversibly. In 2024 alone, over $200 billion in foreign capital left China's financial markets, a record-breaking exodus. Bloomberg called it the Great Decoupling. Others called it financial flight. But the truth is simpler. Investors are done waiting. Behind closed doors, foreign executives say what their PR teams won't. "You can't get money out," said one. "You can't trust the numbers," said another. One fund manager privately admitted, "We're sitting on a time bomb. We just don't want to be the last to leave." And they're not just pulling capital. They're pulling factories. Apple has ramped up supply chain shifts to Vietnam and India. HP is redirecting production to Mexico. Meta has slashed contracts with Chinese AI training labs. Even Chinese brands like Shine are setting up fulfillment in Turkey, Brazil, and the US, just to avoid being labeled Chinese. The message is clear. Global companies no longer want to be entangled with Beijing's risks, because those risks are now political, financial, and reputational. Once hailed as the world's factory, China is now viewed as the world's liability. And while Beijing tries to court the global south, those efforts are falling flat. Yes, Belt and Road summits still happen. Yes, photo ops are staged. But trade volumes with key BRI countries have stagnated. Infrastructure projects are delayed. Many partner nations, once lured by easy loans, now see the debt traps for what they are, and they're quietly renegotiating or walking away. Vietnam, India, Indonesia, they're not just replacements. They're escape hatches for a world trying to exit the China dependency trap. And Beijing knows it. That's why it's leaning harder than ever into propaganda over policy. When the Canton Fair opened with record-low international turnout, state media spun it as strategic recalibration. When exports dropped by double digits, they blamed external headwinds. And when questions arose about missing investors at China's financial expos, the official line was strong interest behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, insiders reveal a darker truth. Multiple trade envoys from European and North American delegations were pressured not to speak publicly about their concerns. One diplomat leaked that Chinese officials offered preferential treatment in exchange for positive coverage. Another noted that local organizers blocked journalists from filming empty booths. It's a stage play, but the audience has left. Even Chinese nationals are voting with their feet. Immigration interest among entrepreneurs and tech professionals has soared. Golden visa programs in Portugal, Canada, and Singapore report spikes in Chinese applicants. The message? The smart money is getting out. Meanwhile, global sentiment is hardening. In Washington, bipartisan support for technology restrictions and trade reviews is rising. In Brussels, European leaders are pushing for de-risking supply chains. In Tokyo, security reviews now include data exposure to Chinese servers. It's not Cold War 2.0, it's Containment 2.0, and China's fragility is making it easier. Because unlike the Soviet Union, China isn't insulated from global capital. Its economy needs the world to buy its exports, invest in its bonds, trust its banks. But trust is exactly what it no longer commands. And here's the twist. The more the system unravels internally, the more aggressively Beijing tries to project strength externally. Aircraft carriers in the South China Sea, rare earth embargo threats, fentanyl blame games. It's all part of the same choreography. Distract from the fire by lighting another match. But the world isn't fooled anymore. And neither are the Chinese people. A factory owner in Guangdong put it best. They told us we were the backbone of the nation. But the moment things turned south, they told us to shut up and sell noodles. Now, the international community faces a crossroads. Will it continue to prop up a system addicted to control, opacity, and manipulation? Or will it finally accept the truth? China's collapse isn't coming. It's already here. And it's eating itself alive, one closed factory, one burned EV, one frozen bank account at a time. They said China was rising, that its model was the future. that its people were unshakable. But what happens when the system built to rise begins feeding on its own? Not with bombs, not with protests, but with silent betrayals. Exploding cars, frozen savings, sidewalks turned survival camps. This isn't the edge of collapse. This is collapse. And the worst part? The machine still runs. The slogans still echo. The propaganda still floods screens. The buildings still stand. But inside, they're hollow. So the question isn't when China will fall. The question is, how long can a perfect lie hold? Once everyone stops pretending to believe it. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And stay tuned, because in the next episode we'll go deeper into the banks, into the data, into the vault of silence Beijing doesn't want you to open. The cracks are already here. Now it's just a matter of pressure.